For 17 minutes, one of the most recognizable faces in Chinese entertainment said nothing. No speeches, no condolences, no explanations. Just a young man sitting in silence, stacking stones carefully, one by one, while millions watched in confusion. The livestream aired shortly after the sudden death of actor Yu Menglong. Official statements described the incident as a fall from a building, possibly related to alcohol. The case was declared closed almost as quickly as it appeared. Yet, for many observers, closure never arrived. Instead, questions multiplied. Why did this live stream happen on that exact day? Why silence instead of words? And why did the explanation come much later, framed around mental health and work rhythm rather than grief itself? In the world of celebrity culture, silence is rarely neutral. It is often interpreted, decoded, and projected upon. And in this case, the silence of Yi Yang Qianxi did not calm the public. It unsettled them. Some viewers saw the act of stacking stones as a meditative gesture, a quiet form of mourning. Others believed it was something else entirely. An indirect message, a symbolic act, or, more controversially, a response constrained by invisible boundaries. When a public figure speaks too carefully, the audience begins to listen between the lines. The unease surrounding that live stream did not exist in isolation. It emerged from a broader atmosphere of suspicion already circulating within online communities. Rumors of hidden power structures in the Chinese entertainment industry had been spreading for years. Stories of artists being controlled, pressured, or silenced. Names connected by coincidence. Careers that ended abruptly. Deaths explained quickly, but never fully understood. In that context, the death of Yu Menglong became more than a single tragic event. It became a reference point, a symbol. And when Yi Yang Qianxi later addressed the livestream, stating that it was an unplanned interaction meant to express inner calm, the reaction was immediate and divided. To some, the explanation sounded reasonable. To others, it sounded incomplete. Particularly striking was his reference to psychological health and work pace. Critics argued that these words aligned closely with official narratives often used to depoliticize or neutralize sensitive events. Supporters countered that demanding more from him was unfair, even dangerous. After all, what is a young artist allowed to say when the cost of saying too much is unknown? Behind every public explanation lies an unspoken question. Not what was said, but what could not be said. As discussions intensified, older rumors resurfaced. The mysterious death of Yu Menglong. Allegations of underground exploitation. Claims of dark networks that treat artists as assets rather than individuals. None of these claims were proven. Many could not be verified. But their persistence revealed something important. When information gaps exist, speculation rushes in to fill them. And so the story expanded beyond one live stream, beyond one explanation. It became a broader inquiry into silence, power, and survival inside an industry where fame offers visibility, but not necessarily freedom. But behind the glamour and the excuses, what mechanisms are really driving this crisis? We will analyze every detail, from the initial mistakes to the irreversible damage, to see how the entertainment world works and how an icon is redefined. If this story resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe to this channel so that our future investigations can continue to illuminate the truths that often remain hidden behind the entertainment industry's brightest lights. Share this video across every platform where voices gather, because collective awareness is the only force capable of demanding accountability. Let us stand together, not in anger, but in clarity and compassion, to ensure that what happened to Yu Menglong is never repeated. Let us raise our voices so that silence can no longer swallow the struggles of those who give so much of themselves to the world. To understand why the silence of Yi Yang Qianxi ignited such intense suspicion, it is necessary to examine the environment in which that silence appeared. The livestream did not emerge in a vacuum. It surfaced within a digital ecosystem already saturated with anxiety, distrust, and unresolved questions surrounding the Chinese entertainment industry. Long before Yu Menglong's death, online communities had been circulating narratives about hidden power structures operating behind the glamour of celebrity life. These narratives described an industry where artists are not only public figures, but economic assets whose value extends far beyond film sets and concert stages. According to these claims, fame does not guarantee safety. Instead, it increases exposure. One of the most extreme examples cited by these communities came from the psychic Deborah, whose statements introduced the idea of a so-called real-life survival arena. Through what she described as a spiritual connection tool, Deborah claimed that actress Dilraba Dilmurat was being held underground in Yunnan province, forced to participate in violent competitions alongside other entertainers. The allegations escalated rapidly, involving children, drug testing, physical abuse, and the production of violent recordings for profit on the dark web. There is no verified evidence supporting these claims. Even the original source acknowledged their speculative nature. However, their impact lies elsewhere. Such stories resonate because they mirror a long-standing fear that entertainers operate within systems where transparency is limited and accountability is unclear. When official information is minimal, extraordinary explanations become emotionally persuasive. Within this atmosphere, the death of Yu Menglong became a focal point. Official accounts stated that he fell from a building, possibly due to alcohol-related circumstances. The explanation was brief and final. Yet, the rapid closure of the case left behind unanswered questions. For some observers, the speed of the conclusion itself became suspicious. Online discussions intensified when videos allegedly showing the torture of Yu Menglong began circulating on underground platforms. One supporter claimed to have paid more than 7,000 new Taiwan dollars for advanced voice recognition analysis through an overseas verification service. According to that analysis, the voice in a live stream matched screams heard in a separate torture video. The individual asserted that while the timing and location might have been altered, the voice itself was authentic. Again, these claims remain unverified. But their persistence reveals a deeper pattern. The speculation consistently centers on one question: why do such rumors almost always involve celebrities? From the perspective presented in the original narrative, the answer lies in value. While artists remain active, they generate enormous commercial returns for agencies and investors. When powerful figures in underground networks intervene, these same individuals are believed to become high-priced commodities. Their visibility increases the perceived worth of any material involving them, including illicit content. The narrative escalates further by suggesting a hierarchy of exploitation. At lower levels, artists are allegedly pressured into social engagements or private entertainment for influential figures. At higher levels, they are described as being subjected to physical abuse and recorded violence designed to satisfy extreme demands. Whether factual or not, these stories construct a grim logic. Fame amplifies both profit and risk. This context is essential when examining Yi Yang Qianxi's actions. Following Yu Menglong's death, many artists publicly expressed condolences. Yi Yang Qianxi did not. Instead, he appeared in a live stream stacking stones in silence. For some viewers, this was interpreted as mourning. For others, it appeared as avoidance. The silence became more controversial when Yi Yang Qianxi later addressed the live stream in an interview. He described it as a spontaneous decision. unrelated to political issues, intended to convey calmness and reflection. He also spoke about mental health and the importance of managing work rhythm. While these explanations aligned with acceptable public discourse, critics argued that they echoed official narratives often used to neutralize sensitive events. At this stage, the core issue becomes clear. The controversy is not driven by confirmed evidence, but by the absence of trust. When audiences perceive that certain topics cannot be openly discussed, they begin to interpret gestures, timing, and silence as indirect communication. The root cause of the crisis, therefore, is not a single live stream or a single death. It is the persistent gap between official narratives and public doubt. In that gap, speculation thrives, symbols gain weight, and silence becomes louder than words. The reaction to Yi Yang Qianxi's live stream did not unfold slowly. It arrived as a sudden surge, driven less by what happened on screen and more by the timing of it. 17 minutes of silence might appear insignificant in isolation. Placed immediately after the death of Yu Menglong, it became combustible. Viewers quickly dissected every detail. Yi Yang Qianxi did not greet the audience. He did not acknowledge the ongoing public discussions. He did not read comments or respond to fan messages. His expression remained distant, almost detached, punctuated only by occasional sighs. For the entire duration, his attention remained fixed on stacking stones with careful precision. Two narratives formed almost instantly. The first interpreted the live stream as a personal act of mourning. Supporters argued that not all grief needs to be verbal. In their view, silence represented respect. The act of stacking stones was described as meditative, a private ritual shared quietly with fans rather than a performative display of sorrow. This interpretation framed Yi Yang Qianxi as someone choosing restraint over spectacle in a media environment that often demands emotional exposure. The second narrative moved in the opposite direction. Critics questioned why silence was chosen at that specific moment. If the live stream was merely a casual interaction, why did it occur on the same day public attention was focused on Yu Menglong's death? Why did it avoid direct acknowledgement, especially when other artists publicly expressed condolences? In this interpretation, silence was not neutral. It was deliberate. As speculation intensified, symbolic meaning was attached to the stones themselves. Online discussions identified them as mani stones, objects associated with Tibetan Buddhist practices. Traditionally, these stones are engraved or arranged as prayers, often dedicated to the deceased. Whether intentional or coincidental, this association deepened the sense that the live stream carried meaning beyond casual interaction. The controversy escalated further when Yi Yang Qianxi later addressed the live stream during an exclusive interview. He explained that the broadcast was spontaneous, following a concert, and was intended to express calmness after years without live streaming. He stated clearly that the session had no connection to current events or political themes. Instead, he framed it as a reflection on mental health and the importance of managing work rhythm. This explanation did not resolve the debate. For some, it confirmed his sincerity. Mental health, after all, is a legitimate concern, especially for artists operating under constant pressure. Others, however, perceived the explanation as carefully constructed. They noted that references to psychological well-being and workload closely mirrored official language often used to depoliticize sensitive situations. The absence of direct reference to Yu Menglong became the focal point. Critics asked why someone who later acknowledged being emotionally affected by Yu Menglong's death had chosen silence at the moment when public mourning was most visible. Supporters countered that silence was a personal choice, not an admission or denial of anything. At this stage, the issue extended beyond Yi Yang Qianxi as an individual. It became a broader discussion about the limits of expression within a tightly managed public sphere. When artists operate under perceived constraints, audiences begin to search for meaning in indirect actions. Gestures replace statements. Timing replaces content. The media environment amplified these interpretations. Short clips of the live stream circulated widely, stripped of context, and replayed endlessly. Commentary videos, forum posts, and speculative threads multiplied. Each retelling intensified emotional responses while further distancing the discussion from verifiable facts. Complicating matters further were resurfaced claims that Yi Yang Qianxi, like Yu Menglong, had once had his name associated with the registration of weapons-related trademarks. Although no direct connection or wrongdoing was established, the coincidence reinforced fears that prominent figures could become targets within unseen systems. Some users openly speculated that Yi Yang Qianxi himself might be at risk. In this atmosphere, silence was no longer perceived as absence. It was treated as information. The avalanche did not depend on confirmation. It depended on distrust. Each attempt to clarify appeared to generate more questions. Each denial was measured against what was not said. As the narrative spread, it became increasingly difficult to distinguish between concern, projection, and fear. Ultimately, the media reaction revealed a fundamental tension. Audiences demanded reassurance, transparency, and moral clarity. Artists navigated an environment where speaking too much or too little could carry consequences. In that fragile space, the live stream was no longer a simple act. It was interpreted as a response shaped by boundaries that remained unnamed. And once boundaries are suspected, every silence begins to sound intentional. As public debate surrounding the live stream intensified, attention shifted away from Yi Yang Qianxi's explanation and toward a series of unsettling connections that many believed could no longer be dismissed as coincidence. At this stage, the narrative entered its most volatile phase, where speculation reached its peak and emotional logic began to outweigh factual certainty. One of the most alarming discoveries circulated online was that Yi Yang Qianxi's name, like Yu Menglong's, had allegedly been used in the registration of weapons-related trademarks. No evidence was presented to show direct involvement, consent, or awareness. Nevertheless, for online communities already primed to expect hidden networks, the similarity was enough to provoke fear. Some users openly questioned whether Yi Yang Qianxi could become the next victim, rather than merely a silent observer. This fear reframed his live stream once again. What had been debated as mourning or symbolic resistance was now interpreted by some as a sign of vulnerability. In this reading, silence was not strategic but necessary. The idea emerged that artists might be coerced into public appearances designed to suppress attention around sensitive cases. Those unwilling to cooperate fully might resort to passive gestures rather than explicit compliance. Within this context, Yi Yang Qianxi's stone stacking took on darker significance. Observers revisited the cultural meaning of mani stones, traditionally used in Tibetan Buddhist regions as prayers, often dedicated to the dead. The repetitive motion, the lack of speech, and the timing aligned too closely with mourning rituals to be ignored by those searching for meaning. Whether intentional or accidental, the symbolism reinforced the belief that the live stream functioned as a silent message. Suspicion deepened when footage from Yi Yang Qianxi's recent concert resurfaced online. The visuals stood in stark contrast to conventional pop performances. Dim lighting dominated the stage. Thick smoke obscured the performers. Graphic imagery appeared on large screens, including distorted human forms, unsettling animals, and oversized eyes watching from above. The color palette leaned heavily toward dark reds, intensifying the atmosphere. Some viewers described the scene as theatrical experimentation. Others went further, characterizing it as ritualistic. Comparisons were drawn to cult-like imagery, with phrases such as chaotic dancing spirits and sacrificial symbolism appearing repeatedly in online discussions. The concert was no longer analyzed as entertainment, but as potential evidence of something hidden in plain sight. The controversy escalated further when it was revealed that fans attending the concert had been asked by the management company to bring a small amount of clean soil from places they had visited. The soil was reportedly collected and held by the company. Official responses denied any inappropriate intent and threatened legal action against those spreading rumors. However, these denials did little to calm speculation. Individuals claiming knowledge of traditional beliefs argued that soil could function as a carrier of personal information. In this interpretation, the collection was framed as symbolic extraction rather than a harmless request. Whether grounded in reality or imagination, the claim reinforced the perception that boundaries between performance, belief, and control were being blurred. As attention widened, a key figure emerged in the discussion: Yi Shu, a powerful industry insider with long-standing ties to entertainment companies. Yi Yang Qianxi had previously referred to him using familial language on social media, suggesting a close relationship. Yi Shu's background included media production and connections reaching back many years. This name carried weight. Actor Renliang, who died under mysterious circumstances in 2016, had publicly stated years earlier that Yi Shu was his enemy. Patterns, whether real or perceived, began to form in the collective imagination. At this point, Yi Yang Qianxi's interview was reevaluated. Viewers noted that while he addressed personal emotion and professional pressure, he avoided engaging with broader questions surrounding Yu Menglong's death. The remaining half, according to critics, lay beyond an invisible boundary. This boundary became the story's final tension. The issue was no longer whether the rumors were true. It was whether truth itself could be spoken safely. In an environment where consequences are undefined and silence is sometimes rewarded, partial explanations become survival strategies. The climax of the narrative rests here. Not in evidence, but in restraint. Yi Yang Qianxi was not portrayed as a villain, nor as a hero. His livestream, his silence, and his later explanation were no longer viewed as isolated choices, but as part of a larger pattern perceived by online communities. Some interpreted his restraint as dignity. Others saw it as a signal shaped by fear, boundaries, or unspoken rules. What united both sides was the belief that his behavior mattered precisely because it avoided clarity. Throughout this controversy, one theme remained consistent. The absence of definitive information created a vacuum. Into that vacuum flowed speculation, symbolism, and suspicion. Psychic claims, unverified videos, voice recognition analyses, and resurfaced connections were not accepted because they were proven, but because they offered narratives where official explanations felt insufficient. In an environment where trust is fragile, plausibility often outweighs evidence. The story of Yu Menglong evolved into something larger than a single tragedy. It became a reference point for long-standing anxieties surrounding the Chinese entertainment industry. Stories of pressure, control, and exploitation did not begin here, and they did not end here. Each new incident layered onto existing fears, reinforcing the belief that fame does not protect, but exposes. Within that belief system, Yi Yang Qianxi was no longer simply an artist responding to loss. He became a symbol himself. To some, he represented compliance. To others, quiet resistance. To many, uncertainty. His interview was dissected not for what it revealed, but for what it avoided. The conclusion drawn by critics was not that he lied, but that he spoke only within permitted limits. This distinction is crucial. The narrative does not accuse him of wrongdoing. Instead, It places him within a structure where speech carries consequences and silence may function as self-preservation. In such a system, ambiguity is not accidental. It is adaptive. The broader implication reaches beyond any individual. It raises questions about the cost of visibility in tightly managed environments. When public figures operate under perceived constraints, audiences recalibrate how they interpret communication. Words lose primacy. Timing, gestures, and absence become the new language. No definitive answers emerge from this story. There is no confirmation of underground arenas, no verified proof of organized exploitation, no evidence that silence confirms guilt or truth. What remains is a psychological reality. When transparency feels limited, people search for meaning elsewhere. The controversy surrounding Yi Yang Qianxi and Yu Menglong ultimately reveals less about hidden conspiracies and more about collective distrust. It demonstrates how quickly narratives form when official explanations fail to resonate emotionally. It also shows how easily silence transforms from neutrality into accusation. In the end, this is not a story about proving what happened. It is a story about why so many believe something else might have happened. And until that gap between explanation and belief is addressed, silence will continue to speak louder than facts, shaping perceptions long after the events themselves fade from view.